Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Kathy Sullivan. Kathy is the owner of Talent Principles, an executive coaching and organizational development consultancy. She's a board certified coach, change agent, author, and keynote speaker. Kathy helps clients facilitate the change they want to see in their lives. She holds a master's in organizational management, an executive coaching certificate, and is a ProSci certified change management practitioner. A single mom to two children and a Great Dane, her purpose in life is supporting the development of others and helping advance women in the workplace, particularly working moms. In her book, Moms Eat First, 5 Principles to Prioritize Yourself and Create the Change You Crave, Kathy shares success stories of how to gain clarity of what is important and provides tools to help you align your focus and achieve what you want. So welcome to the podcast, Kathy.
Thank you for having me, Peggy.
Oh, I am excited for our conversation. I just love the name of your book, Moms Eat First. Awesome. I'm looking forward to diving into the conversation. But first, can you start off by just sharing just a little bit more about you, your journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Sure. Personally, I am a single parent, obviously, as you indicated. I've been the primary caregiver to both of my kids, I would say, for the majority of their lives. My daughter is 19. She's in her second year in college. My son is 10 and he's in fifth grade. Both very different personalities, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Yep, yep.
I've been divorced for many years. I've moved around a lot. So I guess the short of it, I was living in Southern California at the time when I got pregnant with my son. And that was around the time I was informed that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer and she was living back in New York where I grew up. It was just kind of a perfect storm, if you will. And I knew I needed to get back to closer to be, near my family in order to really thrive. So I quit my job, packed up my house, sold my house, packed up my daughter and the dog, and drove across the country and moved to Ohio. My sister resides here, which is why I wanted to come here. And then, I got to spend some time with my mom before she passed. And, shortly after that, I went back to work after having my son, and then went into consulting. And I ended up going out on my own after about 4 years or so. And I shared this piece of it because professionally in the work that I do, in working with clients, I work with organizations. I work sometimes one-on-one with people, but I
Mhm.
primarily work with organizations to create change. And that usually is around leadership development, implementing programs. But I also do some consulting work. And through that work, I often have the chance to do focus groups and talk to different groups of peoples, different communities within organizations. And sometimes that is working with women to understand, some of the barriers that exist for women
Mhm.
and helping them advance as well. So
Mhm.
it's been through those conversations that, I've learned a lot from other working moms and their struggles. And also through coaching them, utilizing some of the principles in the book, I've really, the end, I guess the at the end of all of this, the theme that really came out from my experience and so many of the women that I've worked with is that we're often serving everyone else around us first.
Mhm.
And the result of that, is burnout, stress. Obviously, it can lead to depression, it can lead to substance abuse, and resentment. So I would say those were the things, including some research. There's a lot of research out there that shows that moms are often, taking on a lot more of the load. I think that's probably improving since the pandemic, but it's all of those things, Peggy, that really led me to want to write the book.
Yeah, I just feel like in general, women do take on a lot. We have so many roles and, we want to serve others. We want to, help as what we can. And, we have that traditional, I think, background of being the providers in the home and, taking care of that. But then on top of that, we have that drive to be out working and prove ourselves in that arena. And we never gave up anything. we just take on more. And so I'd love for you to like kind of give us some insights. Like, you've talked to a lot of people, you've worked with a lot of women. What did you gain that was the core of the book?
Um, I what I'll start with is that I think many times we don't realize things until we are at our max,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
many times that is, I'll speak from a personal standpoint, it's the lashing out at your kids, it's the not feeling fulfilled, it's the resentment that you feel and a host of other things, right? And realize and maybe it's, putting weight on, it's not eating well, it's all of these things because we're prioritizing everything else and everyone else. And to your point, I think when we take on more, we have to reprioritize. It's a constant practice we should be implementing. And, similar to working with organizations, I see the same thing happen in the workplace as organizations add more and more to their employees' plates and they don't reprioritize and take things off. And what ends up happening is people end up burning out. So, you know, I think it's really about tapping into how you're feeling first and foremost and kind of exploring what's contributing to that. And I think it's important to note too that sometimes those feelings are coming from stories we're telling ourselves, right? So some of this is our mindset. So we really have to step back and explore what's contributing to my feelings, what is factual and what's not,
Yeah.
and go from there.
Right, right. There's so much to unpack in that, but can you start with I was like, okay, let's like, where do we start here? What are those 5 principles in your book? Let's start there and then, like,
Okay.
we gradually,
Yeah.
get to what we can help women with.
They're pretty lengthy, so I'm gonna
Okay.
go one at a time and kind of explain each, and
Okay.
I'll let you kind of guide, but the
Okay.
first one is reflection is key to self-preservation, and they're all founded, with what I refer to as the 5 Rs. So with this, it's about reflection, right? In
Mhm.
order to kind of self-preserve. So what I mean by this is we have to, 1, take time to step back and think about where have we been, right? What's working, what's not, what do I value, and what's important to me?
Mhm.
And, one of the things I do when I work with coaching clients is we go through a process of identifying their core values and identifying really what drives their decision making.
Mhm.
So, as an example, someone might say, achievement, right? Family is important to me.
Mhm.
And those two things, as an example, can be diametrically opposing. So, if you are an achiever, right, you're often taking on a lot because
Yeah.
you want to strive, right, and get things done. But if your family is important to you too, then that is also probably, um, competing with your time, with
Mhm.
the value of achieving things. So, we have to kind of step back and think about what do I value? Is this what I want to value? And maybe even having to reshift that. But the other piece here is I think really looking at our patterns of behavior. We have to know our natural tendencies, our personality, how we communicate, because I think all of those things can also contribute to kind of our, where we are right now and getting in our way.
Yeah. Yeah, that reflection piece is huge because I think not too many of us take the time to
Hmm.
look back and, like,
Yeah.
connect the dots, I would say,
Yes.
because, it is a lot of, like, okay, what's really important? Okay, am I working on those things? What do I value? How is that in there? And you may have these, values, like you said, of achieving, but then family is important too. So, like, what comes it's not an ever, I think, a balancing act of even and fair. It's
Oh,
it's
no.
this it's this constant moving back and forth between like right now this is important and then like and then and then this comes up and it kind of keeps whatever keeps bubbling to the surface, but we don't
Yes.
take time to look back and connect the dots to what has been working and when things aren't working, why not, like what has
Yes.
happened. So I think that's really huge.
That's so true. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Gosh, you just shared something and I lost my train of thought that I was going to add to, but it's very much the same to your point. It's about making the time. And I know this can be difficult for many.
Mhm.
And also many people I think struggle with where to start, right? So as you mentioned, I think it's stepping back, even if it's 15 to 30 minutes to say what's working, what's not working, to kind of get, it's really about taking inventory.
Yeah. Yeah. I often have, tried to drill it into my kids and, teach others too. Is it's not just, the last hour or two, like what has built up,
Yeah.
for the kids. It's like, what's the last week been like?
Hmm.
But sometimes we do just have to start with the last 15 minutes, maybe the last hour. Did we skip breakfast? Like, what have we had to eat? What have we hydrated? Those kind of things. And it's just like,
Yeah.
once we get into the habit of kind of like retracking our steps and like connecting like maybe some potential causes of what's going on, we have a better insight into what can help us
Yes.
move forward.
Absolutely.
Right. Can you share another one?
Yes. So the second principle is rediscovering possibilities is essential to feeding your soul.
Mm,
So the idea here is, taking time to kind of explore what you want for yourself. You mentioned earlier, I think many times, and it's not right or wrong, but we all, especially as mothers, really prioritize our role as moms. And I think sometimes it's hard to think of ourselves as a separate individual outside of what those responsibilities are. So, this is really encouraging women to just dream about things you've always wanted to do for yourself. What are the things that you envision for your future without setting constraints? I think many times, the example I'll share with myself is I think I always wanted to go into consulting and had always kind of operated like that in my career, but the constraint I always saw was I'm a mom and you have to travel 80% of the time to be a consultant. And I was fortunate to end up working with a small firm. I didn't have to travel a lot. If I did, it was local. So the idea here is just dreaming big, thinking about what you want for yourself. And, that sets the foundation, if you will, for the change you want to create for yourself. But um, again, the idea here is what do you want for yourself?
right, right.
um, and I've had some conversations in the last week with a couple of moms who are like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Like they had no idea of what they wanted for themselves. So it was just a good reminder for them to make sure that they're taking time for themselves to kind of, explore those things.
Yeah. I mean, just as important it is to look back, we got to look forward. We have to
Mhm.
create like, where are we going? Where's
Yeah.
the GPS? Like, if you're going to plug in and go somewhere, you're just not going to like pull out of the driveway and randomly, take these turns. We have to kind of have this roadmap, right? But a lot of times it's really fuzzy, for
Yes.
us. But I think for moms too, and I find myself in that it's just focused on, okay, kids, like, okay, I've got one, I'm going to be a grandma here next spring, and then I have another one that's getting married. I still have a couple in college. I have a couple, in middle school. It's like I have all of those. So it's really easy for me to like get the next step of their life
Yeah.
and not mine.
Hmm.
And so the importance of visioning and like, what do you want for yourself?
Yeah.
Could just be
I
a
mean,
like health or just a little bit of what it is for you.
yeah. I mean, as you're sharing that, Peggy, I can't help but think about like empty nesters and, my kids their ages are pretty far apart. And it's actually been interesting to have a daughter, off at college now. So now it's just my son and me.
Mhm.
Um, and that allows for, different relationships to build um, but, I think sometimes, and men included, I think sometimes we don't, when we don't have those visions, when we are now faced with being empty nesters or, our lives change and we're in a different season, we're not prepared for like what to do with ourselves. And I think to your point, it's about having that vision and that GPS, if you will, so that you have something to look forward to and to plan for,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, because I think the anticipation of doing something, I think is really good. I mean, if anybody's,
Yeah.
planned a vacation or something, we're just
Hmm.
looking, I mean, it's just exciting. I mean, we have a different vibe to us.
Yeah.
And so the same for our lives. It's like having that vision for where we're headed.
Yep.
That's great. What's number 3?
Number three is it's never too late to reset your priorities based on what is important to you.
Mm,
So the idea here is it's about looking at given what is important to you and what your vision is for yourself. Now it's about resetting your priorities and identifying what change you want for yourself.
mhm,
And, I think it's important, the book while there are some tactical strategies and whatnot, and certainly these principles you can apply to kind of day-to-day decisions, if you will. For me, my journey and the story that I share, it's really about making the hard decisions.
Mhm.
So, the resetting priorities for me, as I mentioned, when I left California to move to Ohio, I basically quit a really good job. I had great friends. I lived in Southern California, a mile and a half from the beach. Um, I had a great system in place, and I left all of that behind, right? And I did that because I knew what I needed to not only survive, but thrive. And that was I had to get really surrounded by family. I wanted to be with my mom in her last, few months to years with us. And that is really a good example of identifying what you value
Mhm.
and what's important to you. So I had to reset my priorities. And that was a really tough decision because it, uh, it made some people not happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
I
that's where I
mean,
think we get stuck, right?
yeah, and I just had this thought of like, it's really turning inward and seeing what's most important to yourself. It's like kind of shutting out the world and getting quiet with yourself and getting really real about what's important, what's the value, what is it that's going to make me run? And
Yeah.
that resetting the priorities based on, you like shutting out all the outside noise and like what's best for yourself. I mean, yeah, that's going to make some people like questions like, what are you thinking? I mean, everybody wants to go to Southern California and live on the beach, don't they? It's like, but it's not going to work.
Yeah.
What's important?
Well, and for me, it required obviously a conversation with my boss.
Mhm,
And um, my boss, we had and still have a very good relationship. And but at the same time, she was trying to retain an employee. So
mhm,
her questioning me, right, trying to influence me to stay was obviously what was best for her and the business. And she, I know, had, a concern for me too, but
mhm.
and the same thing with my ex-husband. I had to have the conversation that I was moving our daughter across the country. And
Right, right.
um, in the end, he was very supportive, but those were hard decisions and hard conversations. And certainly didn't end with the conversation. That created other things to kind of manage. But yeah, it was a challenging time.
Yeah. I think those hard conversations are really challenging, and a lot of people like try to avoid them, and
Hmm.
they don't get any smaller when you avoid them.
That is so true. So true.
It
And go ahead.
No, it's just like it's like a sore that like it starts out as something little, but then like if you don't take care of it, it's just gonna fester into something bigger.
It will, and, some people will say, "Well, I'm just keeping it inside, no one knows how I'm feeling," and the truth of the matter is if you're not saying it, you're likely showing it in your behavior,
Mhm,
and that is also a good example of when we talked earlier about your feelings, because you've got these things that you really want for yourself that you're not communicating and not taking action on, and
mhm.
now we're potentially, fueling the resentment and the frustration that we feel. And that is part of the emotion piece that I talked about. So, yeah, I think having those conversations allows us to maintain some level of internal equilibrium, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about like if you have like this thing that you wanna get out, but like you can't feel like so it's like a pop bottle, sometimes when you shake it up, it has so much pressure inside, and then when it
Yes.
finally gets a leak, it just and I mean, I'm guilty of this numerous times of just, bottling things up and then, we lash out, like you said earlier, like we lash out on the people that's the closest to us. And oftentimes it's our
Yes.
kids, our spouse, our animals, and we don't mean to. It's not like intentional, but we kind of let it happen
Hmm.
without checking
Yeah.
in.
Yes, that is the key, right? Is to kind of check in and really explore. It's as you were sharing that, I can't help but think about some of the examples in the book that I talk about of, the spilled milk and
Mhm.
getting upset over that. It's not really that. It's about all the things that preceded that.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to really tap into that.
Yeah, definitely. What's number 4?
Number 4 is amid adversity, you can reclaim power through choice.
Mm,
So the idea here is, when we try to instill change in our lives, inevitably we're going to be met with obstacles and challenges. And sometimes when that happens, we lower our expectations of ourselves and sometimes give up. So
mhm,
the idea here is when you get uncomfortable, that's, I think, actually a good sign. It means that it's an opportunity to practice what you're trying to become and
mhm.
do the things that are going to move you closer to what you want for yourself. But we often feel that discomfort and are like, oh no, I don't like this. But
Right.
it's actually the opportunity to kind of lean into that. But it's a choice that we have to make, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Um, and furthermore, I think it's that practice that actually helps build our resiliency and helps us be stronger in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know what it is, but a lot of us, we just, we don't like to be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Like, and whatever it brings up, whether it's like fears, worry, anxiety, it's that uncomfortableness. But I have this vision. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a picture of like that's a cartoon type thing, but it's like somebody digging for gold. And it's like, you're going for your goal, you're going for whatever, and it's just like, it's just not working. And
Hmm.
they give up, and they go back. But if they would have taken a step back, they were so close. They were so close to reaching the
Yeah.
gold. And
Yeah.
it's like that. It gets really uncomfortable. It gets hard. We're getting into it. We're doing something. We're having those hard conversations. It's uncomfortable. But
Hmm.
yet the reward on the other side is so much better because then
Yeah.
we're really living who we are and we're being honest and truthful
Yeah.
with ourselves and others.
I think in this example, right, this would have applied to the conversation with my boss and my ex. And, I can't help but, excuse me, think back to if I didn't move from California to Ohio, I wouldn't have written the book, probably. I wouldn't have started my own business. I certainly wouldn't have had the time with my mom before she passed. And, I do think that also looking back at the hard things that we've done and recognizing, what we've achieved as a result is also important. It's about identifying, those wins, if you will, and the
Mhm.
progress that we're making. I think sometimes we lose sight of too.
Yeah. Yeah, because everything, we can go back, we can't really put the pieces together forward, but we can go back and going, oh, well, that experience of me choosing a hard conversation or choosing myself over, what other
Hmm.
people want, that is, what has that given me? What did I learn?
Yeah.
And what's the benefit from that? There's so many other doors that open up that,
Yeah.
enlighten our lives and, our kids' lives and those around us that makes us better people.
Yeah. And to your point, in our kids' lives, I think it's important to also, maybe talk a little bit about just, having, so my daughter, I think, was in third grade at the time when we moved to Ohio. And I certainly got a lot of an earful of people with, comments around, how could you pick up your daughter and move her across? She's going to be across the country. She's going
Mhm.
to be impacted. She's not going to deal with the change. And that's where I think, again, as a mom, I was questioning myself.
Mhm.
But I also knew in the long run what was going to be good for me as a mom
Yep.
and allow me to actually thrive was going to be good for my daughter, right? And my son. So it is that the whole, concept of putting the oxygen mask on yourself. Like we have to take care of ourselves so that we can give the best of, ourselves to others.
Right, because if we don't have oxygen, we can't help anybody else.
Right. Right.
So if we're not operating at our best, and to your point earlier is like when we're not operating at our best and we're thinking of everybody else and we're kind of hiding that part of ourselves, it comes out in our energy and our behaviors and how we act, how we speak, all of those
Yeah.
things. So it will come out. So if we're in tune and being okay with where we're at and the choices that we're making based on what's best for us and what we think is best for our kids in the future, it's going to turn out.
Yes. Yes. It may not be exactly the way that we had hoped, but likely it will be better than we had anticipated.
Correct. Correct. Because our vision for the future is really kind of small. We really don't have that crystal ball. So we don't really know how it's going to be impacted. But if we make the choices in the best interest of us and our family and our situation, it's going to turn out.
Yeah, and this kind of leads me to the fifth principle,
Great.
and I'll explain it. So the fifth one is peace prevails when you release what you can't control. So this is, I leave these kind of open for people to
Mhm.
interpret based on their own lives, but
Yep.
a couple of things I think are important here. One is actually to the point we were just kind of talking about. I think sometimes we have these visions for ourselves and we work so hard to have things turn out just the way we want them to. And I think in some regard, we have to let go of outcomes
Yep.
and recognize that our path to getting there might be different, the actual outcomes might be different.
Right.
So that requires us to be flexible and adaptive. But the other thing too, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier with taking on more and more. If you are an achiever, if you're type A personality, which I probably still am, not as much as I used to be, but we have to realize, what isn't ours to control, what can we control, and really just focusing on those things,
Yeah.
because I think when we try to control too much, that again kind of creates that proverbial cycle that creates the overwhelm and the stress.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I've, preached it to my clients for years and years. What is it that you can control? What is in your control? And oftentimes it's a lot less than what we it's
Yes.
our thoughts, it's our behaviors, after that, it's kind of slim because it's, everybody else is trying to do that too. And we can get totally overwhelmed. So, it's just like release what you can't control is just
Yeah.
be honest with what it is that you can and it's going to be you.
Yeah, and it also, I think, as a parent, certainly I know this was something I have to navigate every day is the how much you can control your kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it really is about, I often I utilize a lot of the leadership principles that I've learned and what I teach with clients at home as a
Mhm.
parent. And
Yeah.
it was interesting, especially around emotional intelligence and just understanding my reaction to things and setting clear expectations, holding my kids accountable for that,
Mhm.
staying flexible, right?
Yep.
Adapting my, interactions with each of them based on what gets them to do things, et cetera. So I think most parents probably struggle with that piece of getting their kids to do what they want them to, right?
Right. Right. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother
Right.
conversation. But it is absolutely true because we are the leaders of our house, and
Mhm.
we are guiding our kids. We're hoping to guide them in a positive direction so they become successful, adults and, can
Yeah.
thrive in the future. And those leadership skills, it's this it they might be the words might be just a little bit different. The people that you're using them with might be a little bit different, but the principles in general are needed anywhere.
Very much, very transferable skills.
Yeah. And so that's great that, it's you can utilize those things at work. So if it's working moms, if you have those things at work that, hey, we got to do this leadership thing, or whatever, it's like try to apply it, go in with an open mind on how I can apply that at home.
Yeah,
You are really a leader at home.
absolutely.
Where can people find out more about you, your book?
Well, my website is www.talentprinciples, which is PLES at the end.com. So talentprinciples.com. My book can be found online at Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And I will also mention, the reason I wrote this book was to provide, tools, strategies, and to really help create more agency for women. But
Mhm.
I also am what's important to me is impacting more systemic change, more structural change. So a portion of the proceeds of the book will be donated to an organization called Moms First, which is a nonprofit, and they are focused on three primary things of creating change around paid family leave for men and women in organizations. They're focused on affordable childcare and equity and pay for moms. So
Awesome.
yeah, I wanted to share that too. So thank you.
Yes. Well, that's really important because I think sometimes people, it's like there's more to what we do than really the surface level.
Oh
And,
yeah.
some of the things that we do drive, change in other areas. And we're, women, I think are great at, are passionate about, helping. And so thank you so much because that organization is amazing. and helping so much. So thank you for providing some funds for that through your book sales. So
Yep.
thank you. As we wrap up today, do you have a thought or a quote that you would like to leave the listeners with?
I think the one that, from the book, that it's not in the book, but it really is about, when you take care of yourself, you're able to give the best of yourself to others. So you really do have to put yourself first, um, so that we can give the best to others. And, I'm not, I don't subscribe to this term balance.
Yeah.
Rather, I think it's about having harmony. And I think if more moms, and certainly these principles apply to dads and partners and whatnot. But I think if we can really focus on taking care of ourselves, and um, it just allows us to show up better for others.
Yes. Yes. As if we show up the best of us, no matter what, we do and how that shows up, what does it take for you to be your best? Your light is going to shine to everyone around you and to
Yeah.
make everybody else better.
Yeah.
So thank you for this. And yes, I feel it's not just for moms, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for our conversation. I know there's so much in here and, get the book to help, digest some more of these 5 great principles.
Thank you for having me, Peggy.
Thank you.